Welcome to Global Dispatches, a podcast about world affairs and the people who shape it. I'm your host, Mark Leon Goldberg, editor of UN Dispatch, and in this show we discuss topical global issues and have in-depth conversations with personalities in foreign policy. Global Dispatches is presented in partnership with Humanity in Action, an international educational organization, and I am a Humanity in Action Senior Fellow. Djibouti is the only country in the world that hosts military bases for both the United States and China. The U.S. base, called Camp Lemmonier, hosts U.S. Special Forces, and it's only a few kilometers from China's only military base outside of Asia. France, the former colonial ruler, also hosts a base in the country. That so many countries would want their military stationed in tiny Djibouti is partly due to the country's geography. It is strategically located in the Horn of Africa, bordering Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and sits at the exact point where the Gulf of Aden meets the Red Sea across the strait from Yemen. But in part, as a consequence of its strategic location, its longtime leader, President Ismael Omar Guelleh, has held a stranglehold on power since 1999, cracking down on civil society, thwarting any potential political rivals, and subverting the country's democratic institutions. One person trying to restore democracy to Djibouti is Ahmed Farah, who is on the line with me today. He is the leader of the country's main opposition political party, the Movement for Democratic Renewal and Development, the MRD. But he is currently in exile, living mostly in Brussels after the government issued a warrant for his arrest. We caught up as Farah was visiting Washington, D.C. for meetings at the State Department and elsewhere. So Djibouti is obviously not much in the news, and I found this conversation a very interesting explanation of how a government that is a strategic ally of so many world powers can use that position to consolidate its political power at home at the expense of democracy. The conversation also offers some fascinating insights into how a democracy activist like Farah is able to operate in these very restrictive and frankly dangerous environments. So a quick note before we begin. I've had several new premium subscribers sign up over the last couple of weeks. Thank you. Thank you so much for supporting the show. You really do help keep the lights on around here. If you want to become a premium member of the podcast, go to globaldispatchespodcast.com and you can click on the link, or I'll post a link right in the description field of the podcast episode in iTunes. And when you become a premium member, you get access to bonus episodes and also access to my daily Dawn's Digest Global News Clip service. This is a roundup of the top news that's often off the radar of the mainstream media as it relates to global development, human rights, global affairs, and I send it out every single morning to hundreds of subscribers. Mostly, these are professionals who deal and work in the global development, human rights, global security field. It goes to a number of key organizations like at USAID and at the International Rescue Committee and a few other big subscribers. The Aga Khan Development Network is another key one. So if you want to receive a complimentary subscription to this news clip service, you can do so via globaldispatchespodcast.com by becoming a premium member. Thank you. And now here is my conversation with Daher Ahmed Farah.
I lived in exile from 2004 to 2013. I went back home to Djibouti in January 2013, yes. And we brought together the opposition parties and we took part in parliament election at that time. And since then, since 2013, I lived between Djibouti and Belgium in Europe. I came back from Djibouti on March 2017, and I consider going back home sometime before the end of this year, 2018, despite the arrest warrant that the regime issued against me.
So when was the last time you set foot in Djibouti?
The last time Yeah, it was in 2017, March the 3rd, 2017.
And you now have an arrest warrant for you. So if you return to Djibouti, there is a probability that you will end up in jail. Is that right?
Yes. If I go back home to Djibouti, yes, I will end up in jail because they issued an arrest warrant.
So why did they issue an arrest warrant?
Yeah, it's they say that I am leading a political party that was declared illegal. In fact, they arbitrarily disbanded our party in 2008 while I was still in exile in Europe, accusing us of inviting the Eritrean president to invade Djibouti and to replace the President Guelleh by an opponent. And this accusation was based on a fake document fabricated by the political security in Djibouti, by the Djiboutian political security. We made an action in justice against this accusation and against this ban, but the justice in Djibouti is not independent from the executive power, so that our case was not settled, and we decided after years of non-justice, of denial of justice, we decided to make a complaint with the Human Rights Committee in Geneva, the UN Human Rights Committee in Geneva in last November 2017, and the process is underway.
Do you think that complaint will make any difference? And just to be clear, what you're saying is that the government accused you and your party of plotting with the Ethiopian government to overthrow the Eritrean government, yes, to overthrow the government of Djibouti, and they base this claim on a document that they fabricated in order to set you up.
Yes.
Yes,
correct.
It's a clever it's a clever idea, I suppose, in some sinister way.
But the problem is the document is a copy. There is not any original document. It's a copy written in a broken French with no signature. With one doesn't know whether it is a message, a letter, or a press release. It's a totally appalling document, and if you see it, you will laugh. So what we hope now is that the UN Human Rights Committee will discover this fake document. And actually, they are asking them now to reply to our case, to our complaint, and they can't reply because it's baseless. Their accusation is baseless. There is not any evidence against us. They did this just to get rid of us as the oldest and the main political party in Djibouti. They see us as a threat. That's why they fabricated this fake document. But it's not smart. It's not that smart at all, because it's a blatant lie.
So let's back up a little bit. You're currently in exile, but you were or are the leader of an opposition movement that has been very active in Djibouti politics for the last couple of decades, I believe. So can you tell me, how did you become politically active?
Yeah. Since my childhood, I was always attentive to the world around me, and I became a military officer and then I left the military, and I became journalist and then teacher. But from my childhood, I decided to make something to improve things in Djibouti. I was there when the independence was declared in 1977, June 27th, 1977. I was there. I was a teenager, and I was hoping, like the other Djiboutians, that the new state, the state which was proclaimed, would enable us to go forward, to become a nation, to become with people living in a decent way, in a freedom environment, and with dignity. Nothing happened. We ended up in a dictatorship. We ended up in a one-party rule system with corruption, with suppression of fundamental freedoms, violations of human rights. So I became, sensitive to this, and I decided to make something, to react, so to speak. That's why, after years of action on the ground as a civil society person, I was acting in an informal person before taking part of the creation of our party in 1992. Why in 1992? Because it was when we could create a party. From 1977 to 1992, in Djibouti, there was no constitution. There were only two laws, and all the state power was in the hands of the president. A civil war broke out in 1992 in Djibouti. An armed movement start fighting the regime in 1992 in the north of the country, and in the south of the country and the capital, opposition started to organize itself, and the regime had to concede, to accept, to put in place, had to agree to political reforms, democratic reforms. That's why the first constitution ever in the history of Djibouti, since the independence, was put in place, was voted, and it enabled us to create the first ever political opposition party, legalized. It was called at that time PRD. We were declared illegal in 1997 when our president, our head of party, died. But we resisted. We didn't accept. We were persecuted. I was arrested, detained countless times, but we resisted.
Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah.
The first question: did you participate in that armed struggle, that armed uprising?
No, I didn't participate. At that time, I was not in the army. I had left the army. I left the army in January 1991, and the civil war broke out in November 1991. I didn't participate either in the army or on the other side. I participated in the structuring of the civil opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so after the leader of that party died, the party was declared unconstitutional and was disbanded. And is that what you just said?
Yeah, it was declared illegal. In fact, they made a copy. They decided that the party was not legal anymore, and they recognized instead a few members of the party as the real party, and they, how to say, they took those people. They rallied those people. Those people joined them, joined the regime.
Co-opted.
It was an attempt to create a house opposition. So to speak.
Yeah. Like a fake opposition almost.
Yes, a fake opposition.
So can you describe your first arrest during this period? Because it seems it was a period of crackdown, and you referenced that you were arrested. What was that like? What happened?
Yes, it was for the first time I was arrested in October 1997, October 12. I was arrested by the police, thrown into the central prison of the country, Gabon, detained in hard conditions without any communication with the outside world. I was detained in an incommunicado way, and without access to a lawyer. And I was detained for the first time during 3 weeks. I was released, but but the charges remained, and since then the charges have been remaining. I am under what the French people call liberté provisoire, and some kind. It means that they can arrest me for that at any moment, and this is part of the practices of the regime. They build a case against you, they arrest you, they detain you, then they release you, so that but you are not free of charge. You are not, how to say, the charges, the accusations remain, so that at any time they can again arrest you. Mm-hmm. It's a permanent threat, and it's a way to keep you silent.
And I have to imagine there are many people who are politically active like you in Djibouti who have these charges hanging over their head that could be imposed and rearrested at any time.
Especially in our party.
Could you, I guess, describe how in this period where you were living in Djibouti and you had these charges hanging over your head, how did you continue to voice your opposition to this regime and to try to press ahead with your movement for democracy?
Yes, we had a newspaper, a weekly one, which I was in charge with. It was called the renewal. We had also structures, ground structures of our party everywhere in the country, in the capital, but also outside the capital. And we were resisting like this. We had meetings. We had political awareness activities. We had articles in the newspaper against the wrongdoings of the regime on every Thursday. And I was often arrested for this, myself, but also my fellow party members. But we kept resisting, and this resistance enabled us to get our party re-legalized in 2002, when because there was a law taken in 1992 limiting the number of political parties in Djibouti to 4 for a period of 10 years. And this law came to expiration in 2002. And we took advantage of this occasion to get our party re-legalized, but under a new name, because the regime refused to give us back our name. That's why our party became changed from PRD, Party for Democratic Renewal. In French, it means Democratic Renewal Party. and became Movement for Democratic Renewal and Development, MRD, our current name.
And that party was allowed to exist in 2002.
And it was allowed. It was allowed to exist. We took part in parliament elections in 2003, and then with the rest of the opposition, we created a coalition, UAD, which means Union for Democratic Change, for alternance, and we decided to boycott elections because elections were not free and fair, and our claim of an electoral independent body was not met. So we decided to boycott elections. In 2004, I had to flee the country and to go in exile to Europe because my life was threatened. I spent 10 years in Belgium.
So can I ask, because this is a very interesting time period from an American perspective in Djibouti, because this is about the time in around 2002 to 2004 or 5 where the U.S. set up its main military base in the Horn of Africa, Camp Lemmonier.
Yes.
I am curious to learn from you how the more active presence of American troops and the increased relevance of Djibouti to America's war on terror had on political freedoms inside Djibouti. Was there a discernible effect that you noticed?
Unfortunately, no. When American the American military arrived in Djibouti, there was already a dictatorship in Djibouti, and the situation didn't change. And it has not since then changed. The Djiboutian regime was a dictatorship and remains a dictatorship, despite the strategic partnership between the USA and Djibouti.
I ask this because I know that many other countries with whom the United States shared an important strategic relationship in the war on terror, concurrently with their partnership with the United States, also cracked down on human rights in that time, and were able to use their strategic partnership with the United States as a way to ensure that the United States in that period would not press them too hard on human rights. And I'm just wondering if Djibouti is one example of this phenomenon that we saw in that early years of the Bush administration.
Yes. The President Guelleh and his regime thought and have been thinking that because the USA need Djibouti for the military base, they can do what they want, both with the money that they get from the USA as a rent, but also as an aid, but also in terms of human rights and democracy. Yes, the president knows how to play with that, but and what we try to make the United States decision makers understand is that the American interest lies not in the regime, but in the people of Djibouti. The people of Djibouti welcome the United States and the military base. They have no problem, but they want this presence, profit to the population, benefit to the population, not to the regime. And the stability, because those world power, seek stability for their bases and their interests. But this stability depends not on the regime, but on the population. Because if there is poverty and extreme poverty in Djibouti, the population in Djibouti is poor up to 80%. and extremely poor at up to 40%, with and it's a population with 40% with a component of youngsters, 70%, up to 70%. So if there is despair, if there is no hope for the population, especially for the young, that who make up 70% of the population, it won't be a good news for the American interests.
Well, who in the United States government do you make that case to? Like, is anyone willing to meet with you? Like, I'm speaking to you. You're in Washington right now. Are you speaking with any American officials?
Yeah, we meet. We had a meeting at the Department of State inside Djibouti. We meet with the ambassador, and each time that we have the occasion, we make this point.
So you said that you had to flee Djibouti because a threat was made on your life. What was that threat? What happened?
Yeah, they were trying to kill me, to kill me through a road accident or through an aggression by somebody, by an agent, because as I kept resisting, they tried to corrupt me. They proposed me money. They proposed me positions in the government, and I refused. So they arrested me, but I kept resisting. So they came to the conclusion that the only way that they could get rid of me and our party was to kill me. And I got the information thanks to some people, and I left the country to escape this.
How long after receiving the information did you leave the country?
A few days. Fortunately, I had a visa for France, and it enabled me to leave the country and to go to Europe.
Do you ever worry, or did you ever worry in that time that agents of the Djibouti government in France would also try to kill you?
There's always a probability, but I was rather feeling safe in Europe.
So right now, Djibouti is very interesting, sort of strategically, again, for the fact that it hosts a U.S. military base, but also a Chinese military base that's not far from the American military base. I believe this is the only Chinese military base outside of Asia. How has the presence of the Chinese government and their commercial interests affected the politics of Djibouti at all, or in any way?
The presence of Chinese, and especially of the military Chinese base, is not a good news for us, for the Djiboutian people. It's a good news for the regime because they get money from them. They get Chinese lend much money to the regime, so that the country is the Djiboutian debt rose up to 85% of the GDP, and which means that at any time, as the regime cannot reimburse or pay back this money, the Chinese may take control of our assets, of the port of Djibouti, of the railways of Djibouti, and so on. And this presence is is a threat to our future and to our, because of this debt, because of the Chinese do not share with us the values such as democracy, respect of human rights, accountability, freedom. They only treat with the regime. The Chinese embassy in Djibouti doesn't even meet with the opponents, and unlike the other embassies. So it's not a good news for the Djiboutian people.
I suppose, though, from the perspective of, say, the Chinese or the American militaries, at least, the fact that President Guelleh has been in office since 1999 does signal a degree of stability, from the basic perspective that, that they have a partner they're able to work with, and who gives them pretty free rein to do what they will on their military bases, and is just sort of a pretty easy partner to work with.
It's not that easy because it's unpredictable. While he was engaged in a strategic partnership with the USA, with France, and with those Western powers, he turned toward China, and now he's turning towards India and even towards Saudi Arabia and so on. He's a money-driven man, so you can't trust him. And so that Djibouti became a field of battle between competing interests, and this is not good. When you are a country, you need to have a coherent foreign policy. You need to keep your word and to choose your partners according to your values. And the stability that you are talking about is a false stability, because it's a short-term stability, because as the popular discontent is rising, as the population is getting poorer and poorer, as the Djiboutian people are getting hopeless, this stability will come to an end. That's the real problem. The real stability is the stability for the people, not the stability for the regime. The real stability is when people can live in a decent way, when people can live in a freedom environment, when the country is functioning for its population and not only for a few rulers. This is the real stability. And this is what those powers like the United States of America have to seek.
Have you met President Guelleh?
The last time we met, I was not alone. I was the other opposition leaders, because we signed a political agreement with him. It was on December 30th, 2014, following a post-electoral crisis. The regime had to sign a political agreement with us. It was the first time ever since the independence. But I met him on that occasion, and I made clear that we wanted to keep him, to hold him to his word, to his signature. But unfortunately, this political agreement has not yet been implemented, so that today, so far, up to date, there is no electoral independent national commission, a body that is which is in line with the African Charter on democracy, elections, and governance. charter that the government of Djibouti signed and the parliament of Djibouti ratified, and which is as such part of our constitution.
Can I ask, what was it like to meet him? I mean, this is a man who had you arrested, who wanted to have you killed. What was that meeting like? Like, what was it like personally? Like personally, like what was it like to see this person face to face?
Yes, it was a bizarre moment, a bizarre meeting, and to be honest, I was not happy to be there with him. I didn't have any trust, because I know this man. All that he was seeking was to gain some time, but as I was part of a political coalition, I had to be there. I came there without any, how to say, any hope of progress. And yes, it was a bizarre moment.
So where does the political party stand right now? It seems, frankly, that the regime is very good at staying in power and playing China and America against each other, and using its partnerships with the military to its own advantage. So, what's next for you? How are you faring?
What in a way the regime uses the silence of the outside world, the fact that Djibouti is little known by the outside world, the fact that what's going on in Djibouti is little known by the outside world, the fact there is a little media coverage of Djibouti, little attention to Djibouti, is is one of the main assets, so to speak, for the regime, because it enables him to suppress freedom, to repress the people. And if we have some attention from the outside world, as it happened for the countries where an uprising led to democratic change, the countries like Tunisia or Egypt, if we get some attention from the outside world, it will help us, because we are feeling like we are feeling alone today. We Djiboutian people are feeling alone facing a man who has the military, who has the police, who has the resources of the state, the means of the state, and who uses all this against us. I'd like to underline that the regime of Djibouti is not a strong regime. It's a fragile regime, but it only takes advantage of this silence, of this complicity by silence, and of the support by the outside world, because he gets money, the rent of military bases, the aid, and so on. So if we feel supported by the outside world, when I say I'm talking about the population. People are ready to protest and to go on the streets. They are ready. They already did it in February 2011 and between 2013 and 2014. But there was little support from the outside world. The big media like CNN, like BBC, like France 24, don't pay enough attention to Djibouti. So that, and it's a problem for us.
What's next for you then? How are you going to continue to press this cause and like you said, try to foment a popular uprising to restore democracy in the country?
Yeah, we'll continue to raise awareness, to try to draw the outside attention on the situation, and there is a free media that started broadcasting a few weeks ago from Europe, an exiled media, which is called La Voix de Djibouti. So it's hard, but we have to keep on. We have to keep on, and we hope that one day things will change. We have no choice, because with this regime we go nowhere. There is no future with this regime. So we have to keep on, even if we look weak, even if for the exterior observers the regime is strong. It's not strong, so we have to keep on. We have to keep on. And to continue and reflect on ways to get rid of this regime.
Well, Dahar, thank you so much for your time. This was inspiring.
Thank you so much, for having me.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to Dahar. That was fascinating. I really do like shining a spotlight on these undercovered stories, and this is certainly a very undercovered story. I was obviously, aware of Camp Lemmonier. It's a spot where the U.S. often conducts anti-terror operations in the Horn of Africa. I was not aware of the failing democratic institutions of the country, and I was glad to have this conversation. As always, feel free to get in touch with me. You can use the contact button on globaldispatchespodcast.com if you have suggestions of people I should interview or topics I should cover. And of course, do consider becoming a premium member. It really does help the show in very substantial ways. Thank you. I'll see you soon. Bye.
The views and opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the policies or positions of Humanity in Action.